Welcome back to another episode from Sober Mesa. I'm here with my friend. My name is Ruben Maya. First,
who are you?
And I'm here with my friend and co-host Jay Clark.
What's up?
Good morning, Jay.
Good morning.
And with us today is Professor Lara Hrycaj. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, Lara Hrycaj.
Yeah.
You got it.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Okay. How about we start the show today by you telling us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Oh gosh, totally put me on the spot right away. So I'm a longtime adjunct faculty here at Wayne State University. I teach in the communications department through the media arts and studies. I started teaching during my master's, while I was doing my master's degree here at Wayne State. I've taught several production and studies courses here, but primarily where I had Ruben was, it was either was it film history or intro to film?
It was intro to film.
Okay. So I've been teaching film history for a long time, and intro to film I love, and it's probably obvious that I like film and movies, but I love all things media. I guess I'm gonna go way back.
Okay.
I just to prove that I love media. I wanted to be an MTV VJ when I grew up, and I thought that the best way to do that was my high school had a radio station, and I became part of WSDP, which was at the time part of the Plymouth Canton, Plymouth Salem station. Now they've got another high school on that plot of land. It's just insane how big it is. But I was a part of that. And then every school I chose had to have a radio station. So, and I've been doing radio, but I've always loved movies, always loved film. I probably saw certain movies way too young, but I can't believe I'm going to say this. I'm going to reveal my age a little bit. I have seen the original Star Wars in the theater. Yes, I remember seeing it several times. I saw Return of the Jedi on opening day.
Oh my God! You saw the biggest cinematic.
Yes, So I just recently showed to my film history class. I know I'm totally bouncing around, but that's okay. It's probably the coffee. But you know, why not talk Star Wars? It's fine. I was showing Star Wars to my film history class, and I teach a one-off this semester where it's for Wayne State, but it's at a high school, Lakeview High School, and I showed them Star Wars. I sometimes am reluctant to say Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope, because it's not how it is for me. But I go, yes, Han Solo did shoot first. There was no Jabba the Hutt. Sorry. And many of the creatures that you see, except for in the cantina scene, was not really there in the original. Mm-hmm. And the whole storyline with Biggs was just a tiny little footnote. So the fact that Luke gets to see Biggs and hugs him and it's all exciting and all that fun stuff wasn't in the original theatrical version of Star Wars. I'm sorry, it's not there. So the versions that you guys probably are extremely familiar with, the ones that you know and love, are ruined. I'm sorry.
I think I've seen the original ones. I know George Lucas had a bunch of CGI added in the early 2000s, I think.
Wasn't the original supposed to just be a one-off?
Well,
yeah.
It was always written as, you know, a huge, expansive story, but if it was successful, then there were going to be more movies. But this was destined to be a flop. You know, it's one of those things where nobody expected Star Wars to be as huge as it is, and it's such a juggernaut today. But at the time, it was destined to be a flop. I mean, yes, you know, he had the critical success of American Graffiti. Spielberg had the success of what would be considered the first summer blockbuster with Jaws in '75. And so when Star Wars was coming out, everyone's like, what is this, a space western? I don't understand, you know, this is going back to the old days of the serials. This makes no sense. And it was supposed to have a Christmas '76 release. and it didn't meet it because, I mean, the other thing is he invented, and his crew invented post-production and what we, and what many look at as, what we do for post-production effects, sound, all of that, was created. I mean, it's pretty amazing what they did, but it was behind schedule. They had issues, and so instead of having a Christmas release, they released the toys. The toys came out first, but it wasn't ready. So people got the empty boxes and a certificate that first Christmas of '76, and so it wasn't released until May of '77. And when it was released in May of '77, it didn't release in all the theaters at the same time. So but all of a sudden it was a phenomenon. People were talking about it. It was like, and kids loved it, and adults loved it, and everyone loved it, and it became what it became. I mean, it's huge. And then people said, Lucas, don't do this. And he said, no, I'm going to do this. So he took all the money that he made from that, from the film and from the toys and from everything, and he put it into Empire Strikes Back. So actually, technically, when you talk about the initial trilogy, first one is a studio release. Empire and Return of the Jedi are technically indie films, just because Lucas put his own money behind it, and it was distributed by a major studio, but it wasn't produced by a major studio. FYI.
So can I tell people I like indie films if I watch?
Sure, but not anymore. Now it's owned by Disney, so
Right.
forget that.
I heard the first Star Wars movie was supposed to be called, and actually it was called when they released in theaters first, a Star Wars story, and it wasn't until he decided to make a second and third part that he renamed the first movie.
Well, I don't remember it being called a Star Wars story, and all the original trailer stuff said Star Wars. So, I mean, it was Star Wars.
Did it say episode 4 though?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah, it was just one of those things where yes, the crawl was there, the episode 4, all the, all the stuff we were like when you first watch it, you're like, what does this mean? Today, if you've never seen A New Hope but have seen everything else, especially Rogue One now, you're like, well, this makes sense. To jump in and see it for the first time, but also be amazed at it the first time, is pretty neat. So yes. So I've loved films. My parents, very open in me seeing probably some things I shouldn't have seen. And
Like what?
Well, I was very scared of the original, not the original, but the 70s version of King Kong. I remember standing behind the seats and watching it and being scared. I saw Orca the killer whale. I'm afraid of sharks. I've always been afraid of sharks, so I had no intention of seeing Jaws, but the knockoff was Orca the killer whale, and I saw that, and that actually was pretty frightening for someone as young as
I
I
remember.
was at the time.
I remember when I first saw Jaws. I think I must have been like 7 or 8, and then that same night after watching Jaws, I watched the documentary with my parents about a lady had jumped into the ocean and she got her leg bitten off by a shark.
Ooh.
So I couldn't sleep that night.
I believe it. I believe it. And I probably, even though I saw the televised version, a televised cut up version, The Exorcist is still scary, scary, scary. I was going to drop something, but I was going to say something bad, but I didn't. I'm not going to. And it's one of those that still, sometimes when I feel courageous, I'll watch it. But if I watch it too late at night, I have to turn on the commentary, so it's not as scary.
It would okay. I thought that was gonna be the scariest movie ever because my parents hyped it up too much throughout the years. They never let me. That was one of the movies they never let me watch when I was a kid. I don't think I watched until I was like 13 or 14, and to me it wasn't that scary. But I think it was because they might have ruined the movie for me because they hyped it up too much. It's a great storyline, and it was awesome what they did. I think it was 1973, right? Something
Something like that. It was, yeah.
My dad watched it when he was 4.
Oh,
And
way too young.
and he still has like night terrors from this movie. So I think that's why they didn't allow me to see it when I was a kid.
Yeah, no, it
But-
makes sense. Well, I have a friend that has not seen it since he saw it at Christmas time in the theater, and he's like, I can't watch it again. And I'm like, but it's amazing. You should watch it. And it's like, no. He's like, never. Nope. It's too scary. I don't know. There's just something about it that's just still eerie to me. But then again, teenage years, I saw way too many slasher films. Like the original Maniac and Hellraiser and, and that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Did you ever see Evil Dead?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I didn't see it in the theater. It was, when it was, kind of like passed around as like a cult movie to watch on VHS. So, yeah. But we had a video store that wouldn't rent, or there were a few video stores that looked away when I would pick out the, parental or no one under 17, and I'm like 13 or 14 years old, but yeah, I don't recall Last House on the Left, but, I mean, I have seen it since, but I know I rented it. So, and it's like one of those things where I'm like, why would I rent something like that? But I do recommend The Virgin Spring, which is the inspiration to Last House on the Left, which then was remade.
I saw the remake. I didn't see the original
Yeah.
one. Though,
So
unfortunately.
you've got the one from the 70s, which is pretty brutal, and then the original one is actually, it's a little bit more arty, but yes, it is the same story. Ingmar Bergman's The Virgin Spring.
Okay.
Recommend it.
Write that down. You got that, Jake?
So I
write
guess
that down
since
right
so I digressed a little bit. So yes, so I love movies. I love music. I love radio. I'm still doing radio. I'm the operations manager of Henry Ford College's radio station, and I've been doing that for a long time. So it's one of those things where I'm fortunate enough to be involved in many of my passions, both teaching and and doing radio, and I do have a music show, and I guess I'll let this one slip. And I do work at a record store where I do their eBay, but I also I price records, and I do mean records, vinyl records, not CDs, vinyl records. And please don't call them vinyls.
What do you call them? EPs?
No. Vinyls is the plural of vinyl is vinyl.
Oh, I see what you mean.
So
It's a
please don't
material.
call it. Yes, please don't call it vinyls. I'm like, no. If you want to say plural, say records. So
Okay.
yes, that's. I'm sorry, your all's generation just does that, and it's like, I'm also gonna say something antiquated. It's like nails on a chalkboard, but who has a chalkboard anymore? But still.
Maybe the record shop.
Yes, I don't, but yeah. And oh yes, but just FYI, records and CDs have outsold digital music for the first time since 2011.
Why do you think that is? Do you think it's coming back?
Well, I think with much of the digital music moving to the cloud and not having the ability to have it, and probably some of the backlash of, especially when iTunes switched over to some of the cloud, and decimating many people's
Private pictures.
well, not just necessarily pictures, but decimating their music libraries. I mean, that they, legally obtained in many cases. Some of them were the musician's own music, and then well, this isn't part of the iTunes record, and there it goes. It disappeared or is replaced with the version they have. So there's something about having something tangible for some people. You or if your if you did store it on your computer or a hard drive and your hard drive fails, it's like, oh, I still have a CD, or oh, I still have that. So I do think, though, it's been too quick for car manufacturers to get rid of the CD player in the vehicles, especially since there are people of a certain age, I'm sorry, like my parents' age, that still like to listen to CDs, and they're buying the newer cars, and they're like, wait, where's my CD player? Wait, what? I only have radio or satellite radio, or I can put in an iPod or a memory stick. No, that's not how it goes. So that's my thoughts on that. But I don't know. I think it's just, I mean, you guys have some CDs here.
That's just for
That's just
the
for looks.
ambience. Yep.
Those are props.
I mean, nobody cares about those cassettes, but
They're all glued together.
Yeah.
Yep.
But there is something to be said about still having some sort of physical medium.
I think so. I collect records, actually. I have a record player, and I think you do too. I I think this might just be me, but I think when you listen to a song in a record, it sounds different. Like this, you can
Yes.
hear like the static in the background, and to me that just feels like I was there when they were recording the record, you know. And then also some artists, not a lot of them, but some kind of put some transcriptions embedded into the record, like a thing that you didn't know about the band or stuff like that. So I just feel like it's a better way to connect with like the artist that you love, you know, instead of just buying the CD or listening to it in the cloud.
Or they just include like a message to Satan or something
Yes.
like that.
Right.
Well, I will tell you, when you play Madonna's "Justify My Love" backwards, she does say, "I love Satan." Trust
Yep.
me on that one. I did it way too many times. With the other thing is, I think when you physically put something on the record player, you're invested in listening to it.
Right.
And so you're going to take the time, I think, to listen to it. And depending on the type of record player you have to go. And at the end of it, if you don't have, auto return, you're going to have to, take the needle off the end and then flip
Flip
the
it.
record and listen to it. So I think there is some sort of a little bit more of an intimacy, a little bit more of a personal connection. It's really easy to skim through digital files, and be like, and just go through. But there's something about, I don't know, that you have to physically touch it, physically be careful, and look at all the other intricacies of it. I won't even go into the details of looking at determining original, Blue Note jazz records, whether it has the ear or it has the RVG in it or it has the 9M, I know some of this is probably like, what are you talking about? But yes, these are all things that are very important to specific record collectors, or in certain punk records, does it, does it have the certain messages that were very punk rock?
And it's kind of funny how we choose to do that for audio, but when it comes to looking at something like a TV show or a movie, I feel like most people would prefer Netflix rather than popping up the VHS or a DVD.
But there is something to be said about going to the theater and having the theater experience
yeah.
too, where it's a communal experience, or it can be.
I like going alone.
Well,
We were just talking about that in
We
my
were.
stats class,
well,
actually.
I go to the movie theaters by myself a lot, but you're still in the theater with other people unless.
Okay, I have to ask this because it was like a huge debate in my stats class last night. But
Okay.
is it weird to go to the movie theaters by yourself?
No.
No, right?
I if there's a movie you really want to see and no one wants to go with you and you really want to see it, go see it.
This guy, okay, I think I feel like I have to add to the story a little bit.
Say his
The
name.
background. He said he went to see the new Power Rangers movie because by himself
As he should.
because he knew that no one would share the same nostalgic emotions that he had to go see it. And he also thought that it was going to be a total flop, which I think it was, right?
I don't think it did very well.
Yeah. But he was very proud of going to the movie theaters by himself. And then that just came up to other questions like, is it weird to go to a restaurant by yourself and have an entire 5-course meal by yourself?
I
I like doing that too.
will go to a movie, or I will go to the movies by myself. I will go out to dinner by myself. You know, I mean, it's nice when there's someone else to share with, but, you know, when all else fails, you know, and you want to do something.
I used to work at a movie theater, so when you work in a movie theater, you get free passes to see movies. So I would go see a movie by myself, but that was like my justification. You know, I'm already at the theater. It's after my shift. Yeah, I'll go see a movie by myself. What's your justification, Jake?
I prefer solitude.
You prefer solitude.
I also prefer not sharing my popcorn.
That's
a
a
good
big
point.
one. Yeah.
And sometimes at certain movie theaters, when you go by yourself, it's easier to sneak into another theater and do a 2-for-1 because you've already bought the popcorn and that's where you make your money. So yes, I will admit I am bad. That's I'm a lawbreaker.
Double movie feature.
So they've started. Many of the theaters have gotten wise to that in the fact that they start either they don't post what movie is playing, you know, what numbered theater, or they post the time of the movie, and it's like, but that was the one that played before, you know, this is not the current movie, so they, you know, they're delayed in their times. So you kind of, you know, now you've got to be a little more sneaky.
Well, maybe in
little
some
more
theaters,
sneaky.
but the one I used to work at, sometimes I worked as the concessionist, some other times as the usher. So the usher's job description is to find out who these people are who keep like watching more than one movie that they pay for. It's impossible. It's so hard to find those people. We would maybe catch one like in 2 months. You know, it's
Yeah.
really hard to catch them, and you don't want to like get in their space and be like, hey, show me your ticket. You know, it's like that's past our job description.
Well, and now they are making it harder with assigned seats in more of the theaters.
Right. Yeah.
So, but yes. So, I have a feeling that my 2-for-1 days are probably numbered. I haven't done it in a while. So, but even though, you know, I'm still like looking, can I still do it here? Is it still an option? So, sorry, that was bad. I shouldn't have revealed those things.
I think it's perfectly fine if you do that until they bring down the cost of the candy at concessions.
Well, yeah, it's like I will buy the large popcorn and the large drink, and that's like a gazillion trillion dollars.
Yep.
So, you know, you've made your money. And usually I would do it on a Thursday, where many of the movies will be replaced the next day. So, yeah. So usually it was stuff that I already knew that was going to go. So I didn't feel so bad.
Mm-hmm. But you probably did it on a free Popcorn Tuesday, did you?
No, I didn't. I said Thursday.
Thursday.
I did them on Thursdays. So the worst was Life of Pi was my in 3D. I had 3D glasses with me already. So, because I had walked out one time with them still in my head, because, yes, I took my glasses off, but I always have my sunglasses on, and I didn't realize that I walked out with my 3D glasses. So, yeah.
And you went into the other movie with your 3D glasses on?
I went into the movie knowing that I was going to do this, and so I made sure I brought my 3D glasses with me to see Life of Pi, and then I'm there, and I'm waiting, and I'm like, there's no one else in here, because this was the very last screening of Life of Pi in 3D at this theater. It was going to be switched over to something else the next day, and I'm like, There's no one else coming in. There's no one else coming in. I'm going to be caught. I'm going to be caught. They're going to know that I didn't buy a ticket for this. And finally, a mother and daughter came in. I'm like, phew, okay. But, yeah. But I will say that there was a sequence that involved a shark that I think was my karma, because it made me jump and cry, and it scared the wits out of me. So, but yeah. And again, I guess if the movie was already started, if it played for no one, what harm could it have done if it played for someone?
It's like not paying your taxes. It's like, what's
No.
one more?
Well, you probably should pay your taxes. But I'm
You
just
heard it
saying,
here. You should probably pay your taxes.
Yeah, I don't get me started on that.
Is there a story to that one too?
I will tell you that being an adjunct and working several jobs, the IRS might think that you have a lot of money, but you don't, because I will tell you this: budget wisely for your student loans, budget wisely when you use your credit cards. Be careful and try to find a job where you're going to be able to have your health insurance paid for. Don't be like me. So yes, as glamorous as my life is, it's not as glamorous as it is, because yeah, I'm bills. There's lots of bills, and yes, the IRS thinks that I'm making tons of money. I'm like, what do you mean? And so, yeah, every job, I have enough taxes taken out, but then when you lump it together, I'm in a higher tax bracket, and it's been ugly. So yeah, so I owe money again this year. Again, I haven't gotten a refund in probably 5-6 years, and last year was the biggest ouchie of all the years. I actually had to do a payment plan. It was ugly. It's like, ugh. So I would love to not pay my taxes, but I would get caught, so I can't, because I owe money.
So going back to your job here at Wayne State, smooth transition. Do you teach a film class where like you just focus on like a certain director?
I have done a special topics class twice where I focused on contemporary American filmmakers, and so basically there's a couple books that I used for this. Primarily one called Sundance Kids, Post-Pop Cinema. And basically these are filmmakers that are indie in spirit, but yes, they are typically released by a major studio. So this would be Quentin Tarantino. This would be Paul Thomas Anderson. This would be Sofia Coppola. I always like to throw in Todd Haynes in there, Richard Linklater, and Wes Anderson. So, and I guess what you're angling for is that I did do my doctorate here at Wayne State. I did do my PhD here. That's the same thing.
You're a doctor.
PhD. I'm a doctor. Yes.
Doctor of film.
I am. And, yeah, to prove it. All right? So I know this is radio, but you guys can see it and you can ooh and ah it.
Jake can describe unbelievable things.
Oh, yeah.
I have a gift.
Unfortunately, the binding of a Wayne State dissertation is extremely exciting. As you can see, look at
Nice
how
cover.
Yes.
I'd say it's an eggshell gloss. I'd call that color black midnight black.
Yes, it's pretty black.
It's a midnight black shade.
But to prove, see, Rissé, right there on the spine, what is this music? Auteur music in the films of Wes Anderson.
Now, do you carry that everywhere you go?
No, I just brought it just for you guys.
Gotcha.
No. So yeah, so see, look, there I am. Okay,
It's
so
pretty
yeah.
cool.
That
Yeah.
inscription, by the way, was in gold leaf.
Yes, it was. Oh, I forgot about that. So yeah, so yes, I did write about music in the films of Wes Anderson. I only was able to write, where's my thing? So about Bottle Rocket, Rushmore, The Royal Tenenbaums, Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, and Darjeeling Limited. So at the time of the publication of this, Moonrise Kingdom had come out. So as did
The Grand Budapest Hotel.
no Grand Budapest, Fantastic Mr. Fox. So I did gesture towards those movies, but I didn't talk about them. And another show and tell.
Okay.
This one is a little bit more exciting. So I have a chapter in this book. And so this is definitely more Wes Andersonian in its design. But this is a book all on essays on Wes Anderson. And so it's called The Films of Wes Anderson, Critical Essays on an Indiewood Icon. Yeah, okay. Because basically, again, he releases within the Hollywood studio system, but he has a very distinctive point of view. But my wonderful contribution to this is, well, I guess I can go this page. Life on Mars or Life on the Sea. Sue George, David Bowie, and the musical world in Wes Anderson's The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. So this was a part of my Life Aquatic chapter that got exercised out of my dissertation, and I took it and used it as a chapter in an essay in a book.
That's really cool.
Yes. So this has to do with that Sue George sung many of the David Bowie songs in The Life Aquatic in Portuguese, and Wes Anderson thought that he was singing many of the songs, true to the David Bowie lyrics. Little did he know, and what he learned much later, is that Sue George incorporated things that were going on while they were filming the movie. He incorporated autobiographical images, and actually incorporating both what Sue George is saying and the original David Bowie lyrics gives additional meaning to the songs that are used in the film.
So no one knew Portuguese at the set?
No.
That's
Really,
so-
at least Wes Anderson.
Could he get into, like, legal problems over that, do you think?
No. I mean, it was one of those things where he didn't say anything bad. I mean, probably the most, and this will be for our Portuguese and Brazilian Portuguese, listeners out there. Probably the most controversial thing is for his Sue George's version of Rebel Rebel. It was 0-0, and it's basically that is a Brazilian Portuguese euphemism for something sexual. So
He speaks fluent Portuguese, actually. Have you heard that expression before?
I haven't heard that one.
No.
But I did listen to, when I was studying Portuguese, learning it originally, I did listen to the music from the film because I love the film.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized it was different than what David Bowie was actually singing.
Mm-hmm.
But I never knew it was kind of a trick played by Seu Jorge.
Well, I don't think it was a trick. I mean, he did say, it's like, I only knew, the stuff from, Modern Love. I didn't know this era David Bowie. So it was all fresh for him. So, yeah, I did have because Wayne State has an exchange program with, I don't recall which university, in Brazil, but we have an exchange program.
He did it, actually.
Okay, so one of the students that were here, I had her translate.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that's why she was like, "This is something that's, normal." It's that's how I got this is slang, and this is something that, and she also pointed out how he mentioned sections of Rio that were that. Most, unless you lived in the area, you wouldn't necessarily be familiar with or know. So it was really cool just to have that really in-depth, like this is what it translates to, but this is what it means. So that was cool.
I know for Life on Mars, like, I think the story is completely different that
Yes.
he's telling when he's singing it.
Yeah.
Not really even about the same thing.
No.
He just kind of includes the chorus.
Yes.
And then everything else is different.
Right. And same thing, like 5 years, same thing. And then, like, some of them, I think, because is it Life on Mars, where he's mostly talking about things that are more underwater versus space. I'd have to look at everything again. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's pretty amazing how it works at times even more so and better. So yeah, in the essay I kind of say that Stu George acts as a Greek chorus, but unfortunately nobody understands what he's singing, and so they don't listen to him. And if Steve understood what he was, singing, maybe he wouldn't have gotten into the trouble that he got into. So and I do find it amazing. I like how in the film you've got the countdown, the use of Space Oddity, which isn't on any of the soundtracks, but the use of Space Oddity as the countdown, as the pirates are coming closer and closer and closer and closer, which I think is great. So, which is like, even at that moment, Stu George kind of like, or Pele, let his guard down, and that it was the countdown to impending doom. So, I love that film. So yeah, we are talking about The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, and the wonderful soundtrack to that film. I mean, I love it. That's actually why I wanted to write my dissertation, was because of the music in that film, and that just spawned from there, because his soundtracks are just amazing. Yeah, I mean, and that's another reason, going back to records, characters, either use musical devices, play records, thinking particularly about Margot and her record player. And it's, it's just a really cool thing, on how both songs and score is used within the film. But Life Aquatic, it's special. I love it.
My favorite scene is when Owen Wilson meets Steve Zissou, which is Bill Murray. Mm-hmm. And then he's describing what he does for work, and he says he flies for Air Kentucky. I just found that so funny, and I don't know why. It's like, because there'd never be an Air Kentucky. Right.
Yeah. Well, and I love how, he talks about, well, it's a little landlocked. So, I don't know. It's one of those things where I just, I like the scene that I know Matthew Gray Gubler, who plays Nico, or intern number 1, he hates the sequence, but I love the sequence in general. I love the montage sequence set to Devo's Gut Feeling, and in the exercise scene, which they had done several shots, Matthew Gray Gubler's character slips and falls, and that's the one that they end up using in the film. But I also love the fact that that scene could also be a musical pun, a musical joke, because even though Mark Mothersbaugh, who's is in the band Devo, did the music for the film, the original music for the film, and we've got this Devo track, and it's playing, and we only hear the instrumental build-up. When we get to the point where Owen Wilson's character Ned Plimpton, is training, and he goes to dive to do this, to do the scuba diving, and then the music ends, and that's where we've got him having CPR done, and if the lyrics were there, it would be something about the way you taste makes me want to clear my throat, and so that's when he starts to cough up and breathe. And so that it's like, if you know that, it's like at that moment Ned's tasting Steve Zissou, and it probably tastes like pot and Campari. And it makes me chuckle. So, and there are other musical moments, not just in that film, but in other films that I've felt really silly when I would laugh out loud, just because I knew the song, and some people would like, why are you laughing? Why are you laughing? So, I'll mention this one. I'll try to make sure it's clean. It's for this. But
We have no regulations whatsoever.
Are you sure?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, our engineer left, so we can say whatever.
No, seriously, we have no regulations.
All right, I just want to make sure. I didn't know, if you wanted to make sure it's clean. Okay, so so the first time I saw this movie, and I saw it several times, in its entirety, so both parts, it would be Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino's Grindhouse. So in Planet Terror, there's a
Wonderful movie, by the way.
Yes, you know, both movies have great musical moments as well. But in the scene where Cherry is, she's going to be very soon outfitted with her gun.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite yet. And this is where Quentin Tarantino's character is coming at her, and he's starting to ooze and everything like that. And the song that's playing is the song Too Drunk to Fuck. And it was done by the band Nouvelle Vague. And you know, and it's like anyone that's familiar with the song, it's just like, of course, Quentin Tarantino's character, you know, he's drunk on this, you know, on this gas, and his parts are melting off, and there's no way he's going to be able to rape Cherry, you know, and I just laughed out loud, and I thought it was just, you know, really funny and that sort of thing, and then she gets her comeuppance with the gun. And he dies, and I read also that movie as females, both in Planet Terror and then later in Death Proof, is actually ladies getting their comeuppance on Quentin Tarantino. So you got Cherry that kills him. And then you've got Kurt Russell's character that is a stand-in. So even when the extended version, you get more of Kurt Russell's, you know, liking of the feet. So in the extended version of Death Proof, you have a more extended scene of him admiring Rosario Dawson's, you know, little tootsies. And for those that know anything about Quentin Tarantino, he definitely has a foot fetish. And then...
so does Jake, by the way.
That's a big joke I'm playing on you. I actually don't.
So, but when we get to the final end, and the girls kind of, you know, have fooled, you know, Kurt Russell's character, we have... that's when April March's chick habit comes in, and it's like, you know, the warning, give up the chick habit, but at the same time, they totally bring Kurt Russell's character down. So I don't know. I have a nice little feminist reading of.
Okay, I have to ask this before I forget. But as a film professor, do you think since you kind of know what to look at films now, do you feel like you enjoy films more, or do you think that knowing all these knowledge kind of ruins the film for you because you're just looking at aspects that maybe they could have done better, or, you know what I mean?
Yes and no. Okay. So there's certain instances where I think sometimes, you know, knowing more can give you more enjoyment, you know, out of the film. And then there are other instances where it's like, yeah, knowing more kind of ruins it. It's kind of the same thing, like sometimes people are asked that when they're the same thing with music, you know, where the more that you know about music, as in like if you start performing or studying music, are you going to give up your punk rock, you know, and that sort of thing. And I would say that sometimes, even with certain movies, just like certain musicians, sometimes there is more energy, excitement in mistakes. Mm-hmm. Than something that is done precisely, cleanly, into perfection. So, so it's one of those things where I still get a lot of enjoyment out of Scorsese's Mean Streets. I love that movie.
You played it for us, actually.
Yes,
yep.
I did, and it's not perfect. There's some rough edges, and but there is a lot in there.
Well, that was his first film, right?
It's for his first for studio. He did do another feature length, and I think Boxcar Bertha, I think maybe came out before that. But that was his first, you know, major film. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's, you know, but it's got, you know, just like the same thing with Bottle Rocket. So yeah, tying the two together because, Scorsese said Wes Anderson was going to be the next Martin Scorsese. Bottle Rocket isn't perfect, but it's one of those things where if you look at Mean Streets and you look at Bottle Rocket, you can see many of the authorial signatures of these directors.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see many of the things that you're going to see in several Scorsese films in terms of the overhead shots, which Anderson, yes, does use the God's eye view or the, bird's eye view shots. The use of the slow motion set to music to kind of punctuate certain moments. I mean, they both do that. So yes, Anderson is very indebted to Scorsese and many of the filmmakers of the 70s, but some of these signatures are very apparent. Also, the fact that Scorsese always has, Rolling Stones songs, or at least he, in many of his films, has Rolling Stones songs. And I know that there are people that hated The Life Aquatic because there were no Rolling Stones songs in it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? There was Bowie. What's wrong with Bowie? And it's like, and it's almost like you Stone fanatics, giving, Wes Anderson, guff. It's like he tries to use Beatles in there too. Are you upset because there's Beatles and there's, John Lennon and, all that sort of stuff? So.
And I asked that question because when I used to watch Wes Anderson films before I took your class, I never noticed that he loves to center everything in all his shots.
Mm-hmm.
And after knowing that fact, it actually made the films even funnier and better for me once I watched The Grand Budapest Hotel with...
Yay!
It was like a lot of the comedy also comes from the center. Like those scenes where like he tries to fit everyone in one shot. Those scenes are perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I did enjoy the film once I knew that fact about how he likes to implement that in his films.
Well, and also his deadpan humor. I mean, sometimes people are like, you've got the people that just don't get it or just don't appreciate it, which is fine. I understand the Wes Anderson haters. It's all, fine and dandy, and I'm not here to convert you, but I will tell you that overall, in terms of filmmaking 101, you don't want to do what Wes Anderson does in having everything so perfectly centered, but he does it, but you see Kubrick, will tend to have things like that as well. And so there's, I think Ozu does as well. But, it's one of those things where you can, if you've got a distinctive style and it doesn't take away from overall what you're trying to do, go for it. Do it. But yes, most film instructors that will teach you production will be like, no.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. It makes for a, too symmetrical or too, balanced. You want to have more excitement, for the frame, almost too flat.
Right.
So, but it's not. I mean, but then again, people also complain about how his films are dollhouses, and the fact that he's a puppet master, and so it makes sense that he's doing stop motion. But it's one of those things where he's just he knows what he wants it to look like, and if he can still get enjoyment out of, I think it's great. So
he's releasing a new one this year, I think,
yes,
or next year.
It's already out. It's not here yet.
Oh, okay.
Isle of Dogs.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of like Mr. Fantastic Fox style, right?
Yes, where it is stop motion animation utilizing puppets instead of utilizing CGI animation.
Mm-hmm.
Is Clooney in it?
I don't think Clooney's in it. This time we've got Bryan Cranston as our major dog. So Isle of the Dogs, in case you don't know, is basically a future in which the dog flu has made it so that we can no longer have dogs as pets. And this also takes place in a fictionalized future Japan. And so the animals are sent to the dogs were sent to an island, and then there was a little boy who named Atari, who is looking for his beloved pet, regardless of the fact that all these dogs have been banned to this island. And so while the Japanese characters speak Japanese, and there's been some grumblings on the fact that it's in Japanese with no subtitles, the dogs all speak English. And so, and yes, so you've got Bryan Cranston, Bill Murray, I think Owen Wilson is providing some voices. So there's I'm sure Ed Norton is in there. I think Tilda Swinton's doing a voice. We've also got Greta Gerwig, doing a voice. And Yoko Ono is probably the most well-known of our Japanese voice actors. But there are, if you're familiar with Japanese popular culture, many of the voices are of Japanese voice actors. Well, not voice actors, but from Japanese pop culture. So I haven't seen it yet. It's been in the major cities already. I think it opens here next weekend. I don't know.
Okay.
There's been some controversy, just like there was controversy with Darjeeling Limited, in terms of with Darjeeling Limited, it was Orientalism, which again, for scholarship, there's Orientalism. You don't use that term anymore, but this whole idea of this making a culture exotic, and so there was criticism about how with Darjeeling Limited about the depiction of India and a whole subcontinent, and how it was a white character's awakening. And yeah, that's something. Race is something that Anderson gets criticized quite a bit. So there has been some criticism about this film because of the depiction of the Japanese and that sort of thing. But hopefully I just didn't cloud that for you, because I still want to see it, and I think it's going to be. Yeah, I mean, it's about dogs. It's about dogs that are trapped on an island, and they, and I think overall the story is probably just like many of his stories, which is about trying to find community, trying to find family, and acceptance and connection, and so that's one of the things that with many of Anderson's films, that it deals with those things of, if you don't like your family, there seems to be this make your own family, or make your own team, or make your own community, and try to establish these connections and that sort of thing. So.
And I think with that we go to our last segment.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I babbled.
No,
so much.
That's what we brought you here for.
Thank you.
We can start our dessert eating. Today we have Dunkin' Donuts, American runs on Dunkin', and I actually am wondering if their slogan changes when they're in other countries. Do you think their slogan changes?
I would assume that not all. I mean. Maybe, I don't know, because I'm sure Russia does not run on right. Dunkin'. I don't know. I'm sure it's not America runs on donuts or Dunkin' in Russia. I mean, I would say that. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe it's the Russian reversal. Maybe they make it Dunkin's runs on America. We also have a couple other sponsors that we want to mention. I picked these ones out personally. We got Dr. Scholl's Gel Orthotics. Are you gelling? You got to take care of your feet, people.
I need some.
And another sponsor we have here is the Foot Locker. I know what you're thinking. Foot Locker is just a regular old shoe store. But no, this Foot Locker is actually a local bar that I like to go to. It's for people who like feet so they can meet. Great time. Stop on by.
Get your feet rubbed.
Well, you gotta go in the back room for that.
He knows the specifics of this.
It's a private room for
a happy ending.
Yeah.
So, Ruben, how would you bust out those donuts?
Yeah. help yourselves here. I got a bunch of different ones.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm gonna go for this one. Sorry, I'm not gonna go for the pink. I'm gonna go for this one.
Don't worry about it. So I have to ask. Okay,
Sorry.
so
So I will not put this in my mouth just yet because you're gonna ask me a question.
have you seen what it's acclaimed to be the worst movie of all time, The Room?
I have still not seen it because I have a feeling you asked me that in class.
Did we?
I don't know.
I remember that.
I almost every semester
Someone asked that
someone
question.
will ask if I've asked or that or Birdemic, and
That sounds amazing. I've never heard of that, but that sounds amazing.
yeah, it's up there, I guess, with The Room. I feel like I should see it and see what
The Disaster Artist.
The Disaster Artist. So maybe one of these days I'll do a double feature with that. Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I'm just gonna just throw this out. A double feature you should probably never do. I don't recommend it if you want to be completely disturbed, but they both have talking animals in them. The Last Temptation of Christ by Martin Scorsese, which also stars Willem Dafoe, and Antichrist by Lars von Trier, also starring Willem Dafoe. Yes, believe it or not, there are talking animals in both of them. So I don't recommend watching them together, especially if you don't want to be disturbed. So in terms of haunting imagery, Antichrist definitely has some of that in there. So
Okay.
yes, FYI. And it's a bummer. Not as much of a bummer as Melancholy Band. Okay, so no, I have not seen The Room. I'm sorry. I hope you're not disappointed. I haven't seen everything.
I'm crushed.
Well, we're on the topic of bad films that are so bad they're good. Have you seen Hobo with a Shotgun?
Or Rubber.
I have not seen either of those. I've seen the trailers.
Rubber
Looks amazing.
It looks amazing. I mean, just the fact that you look at a tire and your body explodes, that's a perfect premise to a movie, I think. And that also comes from, I think, Robert Rodriguez, right?
I think it was produced by him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I love the fact that Robert Rodriguez, I think he's done like amazing things for filmmakers. Not only, has given everyone the handbook on how to do independent film, but the fact that he's one that also has done his own post-production. He doesn't have to leave his house and make a movie, because he's built up his own little production area, on his own little compound. The fact that he's made all of it, his Spy Kids movies have, done him well. So he can do things like, like he did Planet Terror and, which I was bummed that there wasn't more Grindhouse, type of movies.
Well,
that
Death Proof is one of them, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, but they were it was originally supposed to be, the Grindhouse was supposed to be a series of movies. I mean, yes, we did get Machete out of,
Part 1 and Part 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
So where is Machete in space? I want that.
We'll get it. It's kind of like a Sharknado kind of thing.
I know, but still, I want Machete in space.
I think the newest Sharknado, I think, comes out this year or next year. I was hearing on the radio, it's gonna take place in space.
Really?
Yep.
I thought they already did that. Sharknado, I think, already went in space. The upcoming one is going to be going back to its roots, going back to Cali.
Oh, is that what it was?
Wasn't the second one called Sharknado 2 the second one?
I believe
that's
it
the real
was.
title.
Yes, but yes, I do. Yes, the last one was in space.
That one was
so
in space,
speaking of
okay.
bad movies, yes, I have seen Sharknado, and I've seen parts of Sharknado 2. I have not seen the Sharknado in space. Whichever Sharknado has them destroying the Sharknado that takes place in New York City, I've seen parts of that one. So talking about bad movies, yes, I've seen Sharknado.
What do you think about the people that say that watching a film is not the same as reading a book? Do you think they're right, or do you think you can learn as much from watching a movie than from reading a book?
I think there's different levels of how you use your brain in terms of when you read a book, you have to imagine the pictures in your head, depending on the type of book you're reading. And so definitely, triggers different things in your head. And, but depending on the type of book you're reading, it could be just as much of a guilty pleasure as watching Sharknado, in terms of, reading, some sort of trashy novel that really doesn't stick to you. So it depends on the kind of book, and it depends on the kind of film. There are certain films that are really, you have to really use your brain, to watch them.
Like Inception.
And so, well, yes, but that's a interesting popcorn movie that is smart, and yes, you have to use your brain. But yeah, there are some that make your brain hurt when you have to, watch them. And so I think it depends on the type of movie experience that you're doing. I think it can be easier to watch a movie, especially if you're watching it on Netflix. Or just whatever's on cable, So a book, I think, takes a little bit more time and energy, but I don't know. I mean, and there's something to be said about I like, if I can, there's a lot of times I like to read the book before I see the movie, or if I find out that the movie was based on a book, a lot of times I'll try to, go out and look for it and try to read it, so
well,
yeah.
As a non-native English speaker, they always told me if you read English books, it'll help you for your grammar and all that stuff. And I think that's true. But what I find myself doing a lot these days is on Netflix, I'll just put the captions on in English. And I think that's a really good way of watching a show or a film while also reading,
We get made fun of at my house because our closed captioning is on all the time. Part of it is
my dad hates it.
we have it on all the time, and I usually have it on when I'm watching Netflix as well, because usually I try to keep the volume down a little bit, because a lot of times I'm watching it in bed, so not to disturb, the other people in the house. But yeah, no, and it's also interesting to see, especially when you're watching it on TV, what has been translated in the closed captioning and what hasn't. So it's really funny when you're like, they just swore. Why isn't the swearing in the closed captioning? Or they just said kerfluffle fluffle. Why isn't kerfluffle fluffle been put in there? So
I also love the descriptions of ominous music in the background.
Well, and that helps sometimes because you're like, wait, what's that? Or watching complex, shows like Counterpart, where you've got one character is, here is Harry, and here's Harry Prime, and who's Prime? And it's like, this is one part of Berlin, that's the one in the other part of Berlin. It's okay. It's in the script. Yes, we get it in the closed captioning. It's just so we can differentiate between the, the different characters. So, yeah, it comes in handy. Sometimes it's closed captioning when you're like, what do you mean? Oh, I can finally hear that low whispering that's going on. and it's translated. Like, yes, I know what's being said, instead of trying to muddle and listen to it.
And I think with that, we end our episode for today. We want to thank Professor Lara Hrycaj for coming here and talking to us.
Thank you for the donuts.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Jake, for being here with me.
Thank you.
All right, goodbye, everyone.